And Alfredo, what have you been playing this week?
My life has yeah, earlier this week is it changed this week. Earlier this week, I was finishing up a playthrough of a game called The World Ends With You, which I talked about quite probably a lot because it's related to Kingdom Hearts kind of. It's a Square Enix game that has Tetsuya Nomura was like producer of it, who created characters who like works with Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, all that. So this is a game that came out in 2006. It re-released for like a final mix on Switch like 2 years ago. So all that to say, I was playing this game because surprisingly to me, this cult favorite of a game from 2006 was finally getting a sequel of it this Tuesday. So I was trying to basically do a full playthrough of the previous game, so I was ready for the sequel when it came out. So finished that game on Monday. To my utter shock, I'm so ashamed to say, but apparently in the final mix there's actually an epilogue, which has a pretty sizable teaser for like the next game that I had no idea existed because I never actually finished the final mix because it basically got rid of the original gaming controls because it was released on the DS and basically it had this like cool dual screen kind of fighting functionality, which you can't really replicate on the Switch. So it wasn't really clicking for me, so I stopped playing it. But apparently it's been a thing that, oh, like it ends on a cliffhanger for a sequel, and me as a so-called fan didn't know about it. So yeah, shame on me for that. But I did get the game on Tuesday, and unfortunately, I have not played that much because I realized I kinda needed a break from that type of game. It's like a traditional JRPG with some really cool twists, so I'll let you guys know how the sequel is, next week probably. But, since I was not playing that and I needed a palate cleanser, I decided to hop on Game Pass and look through its catalog just to see what type of games I could get through, and I came upon this gaming franchise called Yakuza. Specifically, Yakuza Zero is the game I started with, which is a prequel of all the original Yakuza games. There's like 7 different Yakuza games, and I'm extremely late to the party. So I wanted to play this game, see what it was all about. And I don't know how I went through my entire gaming life without playing these games, because I kind of feel like these games were made for me specifically because it is it's basically like a kung fu Grand Theft Auto game, kind of like Sleeping Dogs. If you guys have ever heard of that game or played that game, Sleeping Dogs was basically a kung fu Grand Theft Auto game, which had like a lot of hand to hand combat, basically, which I love. So it's a lot of kung fu, which I love kung fu stuff. It's a lot of Saints Row kind of humor, which I love those games and I love those that type of humor. So it's like those two things specifically combined. So honestly, I don't know how this like fell off my radar and I never played it, but I'm loving this game so far. I'm not very far in it, but it's very good. The story is really good too, which I really appreciate. And the problem is these games are, I think, like anywhere between 30 to 65 hours each. So it's and there's 7 of these games or more. So it's gonna take me a real long time to finish them, but I'm I I'm gonna do it because I love these games so far. So I've been playing Yakuza Zero, but I also then, for some reason, decided to flip around to Yakuza 7 because that's also on Game Pass, and Yakuza 7 sparked my interest specifically because they decided that they wanted to make it into the Yakuza series now and forevermore into a turn-based JRPG. So like think traditional Final Fantasy, Persona, all of those games. So I wanted to hop into that because I wanted some sort of like turn-based, and my god, did I make a mistake. Not because the game is bad, but because what I played this game for 2.5 hours probably, and I felt like I was playing Cutscene the movie. I probably only maybe played 10 minutes of actual gameplay in that entire 2 hours and 30 minutes. The rest of it, I kid you not, is all cutscenes in game. Sometimes you're like walking into cutscenes. It's just cutscene after cutscene. It's really, really bad. But I will eventually. I'm going back to Yakuza 0, gonna work my way all the way to Yakuza 7, and just do it all in chronological order, not in, the way that they're released, because I feel like I'm really gonna love this, gaming series just from the little taste I have gotten so far. Probably played about 6 hours of Yakuza 0, and ooh, I'm loving it. If anybody wants like a kung fu game that doesn't really take itself too seriously, but has a very good story so far, don't hold me to it. I might get like done with the first game and hate it, but so far this is like right up my alley, and I'm loving it.
Now, I've played probably about like the equivalent for probably like 20 hours of Yakuza in total in my whole life. I played a bit of Yakuza 3 because it was like a PlayStation Plus game. It seems to me like it's like anime.
Yep.
Would you consider it bad anime that's so
Mm.
bad it's good, or it's actually
Uh,
good?
I can see the argument for saying, like, it's an anime game. I don't think I would put it in the anime category, because when I think of anime, I think of The World Ends With You and Kingdom Hearts type thing, where things are just, they start going into deep anime territory where they start including time travel and, like, oh, this person, like, kind of soap opera logic, like, oh, it's your twin brother, like that kind of thing, which I can
Mhm.
kind of see Yakuza doing, but Yakuza feels like it's doing this thing where it's making fun of a lot of things, and it knows it's making fun of it. Like, it knows that it's trying to be this like B horror film type of energy where like they are just leaning hard into that trend. So I don't it doesn't feel like a true like anime type game, but because I am so early in, my Yakuza journey, uh I think that it could change. I might think it's
Right.
anime. Now I'm kinda looking back at certain things that happened
Because it always
in, like, the early stages, and
right.
it is super anime, but I think it knows it, and that's what makes it non-anime, I would
Because
argue.
how I've always looked at them is
Awareness.
because it sounds like a shonen anime is more of what you're talking about, like
Mhm,
superhero power ups. Like that's like shonen.
mhm,
A seinen series is more of that mature humor. All of that, like more comedy, more kind of making fun of itself for at least the comedy seinens. That's
mhm.
what Yakuza's always struck me as, which isn't a bad thing. So
Yeah,
I think I
I
might just play Yakuza 0 just to, kind of get that feel. See how it is.
yeah. Yeah, I can totally see it, and now that I think about it a little bit more, I think for me, it doesn't feel like anime, it feels like it feels more like traditional
Mm,
kung fu movies to
got
me.
you. Okay,
Which
cool.
I love, which is why I think I'm gonna end up loving this series.
Cool. Shouts out Sega.
Yeah, doing a good job. You got a fan out of me.